Zora and Vanessa have just released on the global side of the game, and in my opinion, Zora is the better of the two. I am really excited to use him. I'm really excited to showcase him for you guys, and today we're going to talk about how you should be building him, what skills you want to upgrade on him, what skill pages you want to put on him, what gear you want to run on this guy, whether or not he's actually worth enhancing and trying to get duplicates of through summoning, what talents you want to run on him, and then of course what teams he's going to fit well on for both PvP and PvE. So starting with his skills, we're going to talk about his skills and then we'll talk about which skills you want to focus on upgrading first. So his unique passive is actually pretty dang good. If all allies have the technique attribute, grants self speed plus 15 at the start of battle. So if you don't have him on an all blue team, he's not going to be the fastest unit in the game, but if he is on an all blue team, he's pretty much the fastest unit in the game. He's very, very, very good. So if you can, you're going to be wanting to run him on a mono blue team. Now, with that being said, I will show you guys a non-mono blue team that he can work pretty well on. His skill 1 is called Ash Magic Bullet. It is a single target attack. It grants Reflection Trap level 1 to the ally with the highest all attack for 2 turns. And so what Reflection Trap does, this does matter because you're going to see it quite a bit. Upon applying this effect, mitigates damage taken by 20%, which is great, and reflects 150% of it to an enemy. That's crazy. Inflicts an SP-1 debuff on an enemy upon taking damage. When under invulnerability, reflects mitigated damage taken to the enemy. The skill 2 is what I would argue to be his very best skill, especially with his skill page. If you don't have a skill page, it's not going to be as good, but you definitely want to try to get his skill page if you guys can. I highly, highly recommend it. It is just the best skill page for him. I'll talk about other options that you can run later on, but with his skill page, this is a very good skill. So it's called Set Trap. It has a chance to grant an ally debuff immunity for 1 turn. It's 60% if you don't have it upgraded. As you can see, I have it upgraded to level 4, so it's a 90%. You can get it to 100%, and that debuff immunity is really nice, especially if you put that on like your attacker, so your attacker can't be debuffed or loses turn or stuff like that. That's pretty dang good. And then inflicts a SP-1 debuff on all enemies. That's obviously insanely good for a skill 2, and then inflicts a reduced magic attack level 1 debuff on all enemies as well, making it so they don't hit you as hard, and then also grants all allies Reflection Trap level 2 for 1 turn. So this is still going to mitigate damage by 20%, just like the Reflect Trap level 1, but now instead of doing 150% of damage, it reflects 200% of damage, which is insanely good. So because this skill is so good, it would be the one I recommend to upgrade first, especially because it gives you a higher chance to have that debuff immunity on an ally of your choice, because you're going to want to give debuff immunity to an ally. It's going to end up helping them out significantly when dealing with characters who can stun, characters who can go ahead and give you like mobility stop like Julius and stuff like that. That's going to just help out immensely. So I think that's a very good skill to have. And if you are able to get the talent for the skill 2 cooldown, you have a higher chance of being able to skill 2 more often, which is really nice. Now with that said, his special skill is very good as well, but the reason I recommend using or upgrading skill 2 first is because you're going to be able to use it more, but I do recommend upgrading this second, okay, because it's going to increase your defense. So grants, or rather increase your defense activation rate. I apologize. Grants an ally Reflection Trap level 3 as opposed to level 1 and level 2. So this means now you're going to be reflecting 300% of damage, which is insane, but it's to an ally, 1 ally, and then 80% chance to grant an ally an increased defense level 5 buff for 2 turns. That is really good. Defense level 5 is 245% defense. That can be really good when working with Black Asta or when working with Mara Leona, but specifically on the mono blue team, I think it works really well with the new William, who if he has more defense, his skill 1 is going to be able to do more damage. So I think that's really nice. If you are able to upgrade that, that's why you want to upgrade this skill to get that 100% chance to put that extra defense on an ally. And then inflicts a disarm level 3 debuff on the enemy with the highest all attack for 2 turns as well, which is going to reduce that enemy with the highest all attacks attack by, or damage dealt by 34%, which is just so good. So basically, Zora is going to make your team very tanky, and he's also going to reflect damage. So he is very good. The enemy team is definitely going to want to kill him. So you want to keep that in mind when you are building his gear and stuff. But before we get to the gear, let's talk about his skill pages. So as you can see, I have 3 dupes into his skill page. This was intentional. I actually pulled on the skill page banner. He is a character that I would highly recommend if you can max dupe the skill page, max dupe it. Unfortunately, I'm just very unlucky in my pulls. If you haven't seen my summon videos, go watch those. But I do have a versatile mage skill page. Maybe I'll do some more summons to try and get one more copy of the skill page. But yeah, I highly recommend duping it out. So what does it do? Well, besides giving you the grants all allies reflection trap level 2 for 1 turn, you don't have that if you don't have a skill page. It also gives you a chance, it's 40% without having to upgrade it at all, 40% chance to grant all allies a 20% increased defense buff for 2 turns when attacked by an attacker, right? That's at level 1. But because I have mine at level 4, I have an 80% chance to activate this, and it gives 35% defense for 2 turns, which is pretty good, but it gets so much better when you upgrade it even more, because I go from a 35% chance, or sorry, 35% defense increase to a 50% defense increase at level 5, and then you have a 100% chance to activate that at level 6. So definitely worth duping out this skill page if you can. That's going to be more of a whale thing probably, but I feel like it's very, very useful, and this is a very good skill page if you are trying to build a defensive team or trying to build a mono blue team. It's going to help you out immensely. Now, if you were very unlucky or you aren't pulling for the skill pages, there are some other options, so let me show you guys those. So Zora is a debuffer, so you can run pretty much any debuffer skill page on him that you want. So Rill is an option you can run. It's called Blooming Talent, and it has a 60% chance of applying 10 to 20% defense reduction to a random enemy for 2 turns upon using a special skill. So not only are you giving yourself reflection trap magic, you could also be lowering the enemy's defense while at the same time raising your own defense. So that could be a pretty decent skill page you could run on Zora. Another option you can run would be the Little Halloween Devil, and upon taking damage there is a 20 to 100% chance to inflict a SP-1 debuff on all enemies. So if you happen to have this one fully max duped and you put it on Zora, anytime he takes damage, SP-1 on top of his SP-1 on his skill 2, like it could be pretty good. It could work out pretty well. So this is definitely another very viable option for Zora. And then if you lack those debuffer skill pages, you could also run something like Moonlight Necklace, and what this is going to do is it's going to apply a 40 to 80% increased defense and 6 to 10% increased healing to yourself. Defense is always good on a character like this because you're going to want them to survive. Once again, enemies will probably be trying to target him to get rid of him because he's just really freaking annoying, so Moonlight Necklace is good to help keep him alive. And last but not least, you could also potentially run White Blizzard. This will probably be the one I like least recommend, but depending on the enemy team you're going against, maybe they have Yuno or something like that with a silence, you could run this for a 40 to 80% chance to remove silence and total silence from yourself upon starting your turn. That way he's able to actually give defense to your team and do what he does. But once again, this one in particular, it's just going to matter what type of team you are taking on. Moving on to gear. For Zora, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to want a speed set because you want him to be as fast as possible, especially if you're going against other Zoras. So a full speed set is going to maximize his potential speed +5. And then I would also go for a half defense set for a 30% increased defense to give him more survivability once again. And then for the substats, I would go for defense. I would also go for crit resist. I would also go for damage resist. And wherever you can, I would also go for HP. Okay, so those are kind of the 4 main substats that I would go for in order to make him as tanky as possible, give him as much survivability as possible, so on and so forth. I do have an SSR here. I need to farm out one more LR piece so I can fully have a full LR set on him. But, you know, as for these pieces right here, you notice the main stat is attack. That doesn't really matter, okay? You're building more for sets than you are for, like, stats, right? So you'll see attack on all these. If you were going to build him some way, I would say lean towards attack, but he's never going to do the most damage. You're using him mainly for utility. So your main goal is to build him so he can survive and so that he can be fast. So that's why you're going for a gold speed set and a gold defense set. And really quickly, if you're new to the game, so you know what these are, you can go to sets over here and you can see attack set, defense set, HP set, so on and so forth. These are what we call normal sets. Any set with a gold star on it, like over here, attack, defense, HP, is going to be a gold set, and gold sets are always better than normal sets because they're going to increase your stats more than a normal set. Okay, so whenever you can, equip gold sets over normal sets because they're going to help out your character immensely. And as you can see on the stats right here, my damage resist is up to 305. So I do recommend, highly recommend, like crit resist, damage resist, and mainly defense. And I would say the 4th most important would be HP. So I wouldn't worry about HP too much, but like those are kind of the top 3 in my opinion. Top 1, if I had to order them, I would say defense is most important, then crit resist, then damage resist, and then HP if I was to put them in the exact order of like substats, which ones you need to work on first. But yeah, that's kind of Zora's gear in a nutshell. And now let's talk about enhancement. So is this character actually worth enhancing? Should you be pulling for extra dupes of him? Long story short, I do think you should try to get him to 2 dupes. As for getting him to max dupes, I do not think that is exactly necessary, but the reason you want to get him to 2 dupes is because if Reflection Trap is present on self at the start of a turn, grants a 30% reduced damage taken buff for 1 turn. That's going to help when he uses his skill 2 to put Reflection Trap on everybody, right? That means he's going to have Reflection Trap on himself, reducing his own damage by 30%, giving him even more survivability, and of course that's once again what you're building him towards, because people are going to want to get rid of him. So how do you stop that? You give him more damage reduction, you give him more defense, crit resist, all that good stuff. So I do think it's going to help out quite a bit to get him to 2 dupes. I don't think it's necessarily like gonna be, it's not necessary, okay, but it's gonna help you out a lot. And then as for the 5 dupe passive, right, you still get that 30% reduced damage, but then additionally, at the start of a battle, if all allies have the technique attribute, inflicts buff immunity on the enemy with the highest all attack for 1 turn, so they can't receive buffs. So that's kind of nice. I don't really know how much that's going to play into it. I don't feel like it's necessary, but it's just one of those nice things that can help you out a bit. But definitely not necessary to get him to max dupes. Getting him to 2 dupes, though, I would say is going to help you out quite a bit. So if you can, try to pull for at least 2 dupes of Zora. And then as for talents, let's start with the attack talents up here. They don't really matter once again because he's never going to do the most damage, but I would just go for damage dealt and crit damage. You could also go for like attack damage and crit rate right here. So you could go for these 2 if you wanted. But basically I would go for damage dealt, crit damage, or attack and stacking crit rate right there. Either way, doesn't really matter for the attack tree. The defense tree does matter quite a bit. I would go for the 20% defense. That's going to help out immensely. And then I would also go for the Iron Will, which is going to give you debuff immunity for 1 turn if his HP is equal to or lower than 35%. Debuff immunity is, of course, very nice to make sure that you're not going to get debuffed when you're low on health and he's still able to do the stuff he needs to do. And then for the support tree, this one is my number 1 go-to. I highly recommend getting Mage's Blessing on this particular character. 20% chance to grant a reduced skill 2 cooldown by 1 turn. As we talked about, his skill 2 is the best thing in his kit, especially with his skill page. So definitely get this particular talent right here. And then also you're going to want damage resist. And then as for the stone slot, if you do complete the whole tree, I would definitely go for a speed stone slot. That way you're able to have a faster Zora than an enemy Zora if you happen to run into one. And that is pretty much his build guide. Let's talk about the potential teams he can fit on. So when it comes to talking about potential teams that are available right now on global, I am a big fan of this team because I like the idea of counterattack, counterattack, counterattack. Zora goes first, right? So you don't have to worry about him losing the counterattack. So it'll be ideally like Zora goes first, then Charlotte goes, then Luck goes, then William goes, and it'll just work out really, really nicely with this team in particular. I think this team is very, very nice for people on global. Another option you can run, maybe you don't have this Charlotte right here, you could switch out Charlotte for someone like Ghosh. Ghosh is also nice because even though he doesn't give counterattack, he does give dot immunity with his special. He can give sunlight, which increases damage for Luck and stuff like that. He can also increase weapon enhancement and stuff like that just to make Luck hit harder. So he's a very, very good support for making Luck hit harder. He is definitely an option you can run. If you don't have Ghost or you don't have Charlotte, you could maybe potentially try to fill in this Noelle right here with her SP reducing effects plus his SP reducing effects. You know, it could be very annoying. It could work out pretty well. But right now on the global, this is kind of what we have. Later, when we get the new seasonal Noelle and the new seasonal Nozel, they could potentially fit into this mono blue team. But for right now, I feel like those are kind of the best options. But other than switching out that particular slot right there, I would keep all these other 3 characters the same. I would recommend having this William, having this Zora together, because this William, it has an AoE stun on his combo attack, and Zora has the ability to get rid of immortality, so when they work together it's very, very nice. And I would also recommend having Luck on the team because he just works really well with William. So these 3 characters I would say are kind of irreplaceable, but that last slot you can fill with the different characters that I showed you. And the other option for a non-mono blue team would be something like this right here. So the idea behind this team is you're going to have Zora to give extra defense to Marileona and Black Asta, as well as he's going to be reflecting damage on top of the burns that Marileona already puts on the enemies, which is freaking annoying. So you have damage reduction here, you have extra defense here, you have the burns on the enemies, you have the magic reflection. It's just a lot of tank, a lot of annoying. So if you want to run a really annoying team in PvP, this is the team for you. This team could also actually work out pretty well in PvE content, just depending on which PvE content you're taking on, because if you need a team that's just going to be able to survive, this might be your team right here. So definitely a team you could try for PvE, but I feel like as far as PvP goes, very, very good. And Zora is just a good debuffer in general. I feel like he'll be good for any team when it comes to PvE content if you're just trying to help with survivability and you're trying to help with keeping your team alive. So that's where I would kind of use Zora in PvE, but as for PvP teams, these are kind of the two teams that I would run. This mono blue team and this team right here. So that is the build guide for Zora, completely finished. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.